Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. My name is Gail Snyder. I'm the Executive Director for Dementia Friendly Fort Worth. We are proud to offer these programs with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for future use through a YouTube channel. And today, back with us again is Peggy Spear from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art for the fashion session of Artful Moments. Peggy, get us started.
Thank you for the introduction, Gail. Let me click the share screen. All right, friends, how are we doing this morning?
Doing well.
Great, fine. Thank you.
So far, so good.
All right, well, that's what I like to hear. So we're going to spend a little time with some fashion today, which I'm sure we're kind of sick of wearing our sweats and big sweaters and all this rain. So we're going to live vicariously through some of our fashionable artworks.
Okay.
Hey, how about my sweater?
Hey,
Fashionable
that's great.
and seasonal and warm. All right, so we're going to start with this photograph. And today I'm showing you a few artworks that we almost never have on view because you know, we've talked about it in the past, but just the reminder, a lot of works on paper, once they go on view, they can only be on view depending on the light levels from 4 to 6 months. And then when we take them down, they have to rest for sometimes up to 20 years, depending on the material. So we're going to look at some artworks today that if you were to come to the museum, you would not see them on the wall, but we do have them in our collection. So this first one, we're looking at some really fancy ladies. Can you guys tell me what you see?
They look
ladies.
like the judge and her collars.
Oh yeah, RBG and her collars, you're right.
Yes.
Is this a Victorian style dressing?
I think it's a little before Victorian. It's the 1950s is when this daguerreotype was made.
Okay.
Yeah. Two women dressed up.
Women dressed up. And what do we notice about their outfits?
They're
Or
both
their
they're
hair?
black.
Anything about them?
It's the same, black and white.
Black and white. And it might be, they might have had color, but given the nature of the photograph, we don't know. We don't know who these people even are.
Mm.
What do we notice about their hair?
They're put up similar.
Yes.
It's set up with a funny thing.
Yeah, parted right down the middle.
Part in the middle, yeah, and then something makes it stick out at the sides.
So
Princess Leia.
Yeah,
Princess Leia, yeah.
before Princess Leia. She was a twinkle in everyone's eye, but she, this style was really popular at the time, the part down the middle, and then heavy weighted hair on the side. So it was probably, you can't see it, but it was probably, you know, curled and then pinned to the side of their head. And the hats of that time, even though they're not wearing hats, were created in a way so that women could still wear their hair this way. It was like a hat that sat more on the top and back of their head, so they could wear their fashionable hairdos.
Where do I turn it up?
A little bit like a Robin Hood hat, pointed in the front, pointed in the back.
Right.
Did any of you ever see Queen Victoria on PBS? It was just last year it was on.
What's
No.
that?
I remember at one point she had that hairdo.
Oh, yeah. So it was, this is, I'm sure everything we got was like late to come to the US. Everything was set trendy in Europe and then it trickled all the way over the US.
Mm-hmm.
But this style in the 1950s was really popular. And then at this time, okay, so someone talked about the white collar, her Ruth Bader Ginsburg collar.
Mm-hmm.
The collars, white collars and high necklines at that time were really popular of women's day outfits. So this wasn't a formal outfit. This was that collar and that high neckline was something you would wear when you were hosting people during the day or running errands. That kind of look was common of that time. And it was, the white collar was just kind of, you know, most women would wear the white collar, but then you could see they added a little flair. Like, what do you notice? What are some differences you notice between the two of the one of this?
The one on the left is kind of lacy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Lacy. And then this one's kind of simpler, plain, but has different layers.
Mm-hmm.
So then okay, so we notice it's a high neckline. What do you notice about their sleeves? Are they puffy? Are they skinny? Are they embellished? Are they plain?
They're puffy a little bit.
The one on the shorter one seems like puffier than the taller one.
A little more fabric?
Yeah.
So as the decade went on, the later in the decade, the wider the sleeve got.
Okay.
So this was in the 1950s. So it looks like a little more fabric, but it's not that complete puff that the later part of that decade started to see. And especially when it was a day outfit, like we're seeing these two women wear, they were always long, they weren't short. And then they had, they were typically straighter than the evening wear that would have the big old puffy puffs at the top of the sleeve. But we don't see any embellishment. That was also a nighttime thing. So we're seeing something very simple.
Well, the taller one has earrings on, doesn't she?
You're right. You know, I've never noticed that before, but yeah, she does.
Wow.
And this woman might have little studs in, but we can't even.
Yeah.
So then
I think it's
this is another part of the fashion of the day for their day outfits. You can see that it's a fitted bodice, but then at the hip, there's a bit of fabric that goes over the puffy skirt.
Okay.
peplum.
Yes,
Peplum.
exactly. It's a peplum. And so you can see, and you might have to really kind of look closely, but the peplum on the shorter woman's jacket looks to have maybe some sort of embellishment, some maybe embroidered stuff. Whereas this one on the taller woman seems a little simpler, but she seems to have a more textured fabric.
Moire silk.
Yeah, doesn't it look like that?
It does.
For a day outfit, fancy schmancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
And then
to me,
third, oh, go ahead.
What
What
do you think of hoop skirts and
I was saying, to
petticoats?
me, they look like they might be sisters.
I was
Yeah.
going to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know.
Yeah.
So they might be. Yeah,
Most likely they wouldn't be photographed together unless they were sisters or cousins.
Yeah.
you're right. Family of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and their skirts. So this was another, those poofy skirts. They were, different tops and bottoms. And the poofy skirt was a hallmark of the 1950s. And sometimes, 1850s, you're right. 1850s.
Oh.
And they would sometimes wear up to 7 petticoats under
Yes.
their skirt
Wow.
to give it that volume. Can you imagine how hot that would be?
Mm.
And
I
without,
remember the petticoats in the 50s. And then I kept a couple so I could show them to my kids when they grew up. So this is what we used to do. We 7 or 8 of them and put the skirt on top. And
Oh man.
I
Paulette,
remember
did you have
walking through Boston Common one day and one of my petticoats fell off. I mean, it just slithered down and I almost tripped over it and I just kept walking. Remember that also Ambrose, just keep walking. That's what I did.
Paulette,
I don't know who that belongs to.
Paulette, did you ever have a poodle skirt over
Oh
those
gosh,
petticoats?
yes.
Yes.
Yes, I had a poodle skirt. Oh, yeah.
How fun.
Felt. It was made of felt.
Myra,
Yes, made of
Myra and I
felt.
came after poodle skirts.
Yeah.
You're just children.
We're just children. Yeah.
I think I wore a poodle skirt in like 4th grade for Halloween one year.
Oh my goodness. Well, it was a real thing.
So what's kind of cool about this,
Sorry.
this picture, so, fashion aside, this type of photograph is called a daguerreotype, and I'm sure you've seen daguerreotypes before, but they're little, maybe the size of an index card. They can get as big as to 6 by 8, but typically not that big. Usually smaller, something you can hold in your hand, and they were often in something you would fold to protect it because it was done on mirrored glass.
Yeah.
It was a very, very long process to produce these pictures, and there was a one-of-a-kind picture. It wasn't like negatives today where you can produce multiple
Right.
of the same picture. This was, they sat for this picture, and it was taken once on a daguerreotype. And then
And the-
sometimes the artist would go back and hand tint these. So you might have seen, a pink ribbon on someone's hat or a blue bow tie, something they go back in to give it just a little personal affect. Well, these are, because they're on mirror and reflective glass, they're kind of hard to see. So when you look at them, we often at the museum, if we ever have we call them DAGs, daguerreotypes out. You put this mirror under this black board under your chin, so then it reflects onto the mirror of the, and it's easier to see because it's not reflecting all the different colors of what is in that gallery space. It's so, you ever see somebody in a gallery with the thing under their chin, they're about 100% of the time, 99% of the time looking at a daguerreotype.
Well, and the daguerreotypes also, you said it was a mirror, but it actually is a silver backed mirror. It's a silver chemical that reacts to the light.
Yes, yes. And so it takes a while. It's really dangerous too. If,
yeah, it is.
Start to enter your skin and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Mad Hatter. You know the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland?
Yes.
That Lewis Carroll was a photographer himself. And so he got the idea of the Mad Hatter because when you are agitating photographs at that time, there was mercury in it, and we didn't know the effects of mercury at that time. And so it was entering these photographers' skin, and photographers would often then have mental disease as a part of this introduction. So that's where he was inspired by the Mad Hatter.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, just a little interesting tidbit. All right, so we're saying goodbye to these sisters, cousins.
Wait. Before you go, can I say something else?
Sure, please.
Okay, on YouTube, there's a channel that I follow, and don't laugh at me, but it's her name is Bernadette Banner, and she specializes in museum quality, recreating museum quality Victorian era dress, and so if you're interested in it, it's just on YouTube, and go out to type in Bernadette Banner, and you will find her channel.
Very cool. Oh man, nothing is more interesting to me than like costume and garb of different eras, decorative arts. Ooh, so cool.
What's her last name?
Banner, Banner.
She's on YouTube?
She's on YouTube, yes.
Okay.
I think I may have seen some of those. Is that where people try to make themselves look like an old picture?
No, this is for people that make dresses that look like they're old dresses, but they use them. They wear them in settings where people all dress up in old pictures, old looking clothes.
Cool. Banner. I'll have to look her up.
Yeah.
Well, she might then be kind of appropriate too for the next artwork we're going to look at. This is actually on view right now, and this is a sculpture called American Girl by a female artist from St. Louis by Chicago, Betty Potter Varney.
St. Louis, go!
Yeah, are you from STL?
I'm from St. Louis.
Cool. Well,
I got to watch him put the last final piece in the arch.
oh, how neat.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you and Betty then got something in common because you're both from the Midwest. So this particular artist, have any of you heard of this female sculptor before?
Not I.
No.
One of those women where her work is in so many collections, but she's often not known by name. So she really made a living for herself. She ended up marrying a male painter artist, but she would make these little statuettes out of plaster and later bronze of women and children playing the very domestic feminine scenes, and people went gaga for them. These are types of sculptures that people wanted for their salons at home, for their mantelpieces. So when she got married, she moved to New York City and continued to make a really nice living creating these sculptures. But it's hard to do a sculpture on the computer, but we're going to give it a shot. So what do we see? What's happening in the sculpture?
Well, she's
I don't
sitting
know
down.
what's happening, but how tall is it? How big is it?
Oh gosh, I didn't include the dimensions. It's probably about 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall.
Okay.
So it's pretty small. It's meant to be on a credenza or a mantle.
Oh, okay. All right.
Not, and all of hers are generally about that same type of measurement range.
I love it. It's beautiful.
So it's still All right, so I heard Dawn say it looks like she's sitting down.
Yeah, it looks like something like a bench you'd see in your bedroom.
Yes, like an indoor bench. You're right, for sure.
She's very
With curved
fancy
legs.
dressed.
She's in what kind of dress?
No, she's very fancy.
Yes, so
It looks like
this is
an evening
fancy
gown or something.
dress.
with full-length gloves.
Yes.
Full-length
Yes.
gloves. You guys don't wear your full-length gloves just doing chores around the house or
Of course I do.
I had
Oh,
mine
Dawn.
on yesterday because it was cold in the car, so I had mine on.
right. Adding a little panache to your everyday.
You make me think about those yellow wash your glasses gloves.
I wear them all the time. I have a little baby, and so I'm constantly washing bottles. And so my older son puts them on. He's like, "I'm mommy." I'm like, "Oh."
That's what mommy is, huh?
But yes, you are.
That's funny.
Oh, so can I ask a question? What color is this statue?
So it's showing up white, but it's
Mhm.
it's a rose tinted plaster. It's a very, very, very soft paint, which plays really nicely into this feminine
Yeah.
aura her artwork typically has. And so this is hand modeled. And do you know, can you see parts of it where it looks hand modeled?
Under
I
under the seat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Under the seat, parts of her dress. And she did use tools as well, but she really got in with in the plaster with her fingers to create some of that texture.
Okay.
So I'm curious about the front of the gown.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it has some kind of tassel or embellishment that comes there down at the front.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, great observation. So this is an evening gown, and granted, this was created in the 1890s, and this was the 1850s. These were day dresses. You can see that this is not right up to her collarbone, but showing her décolleté, which was
Right.
an evening gown. And when it was an evening gown, especially in this part of the 1800s, embellishments like fringe or lace were often added beadwork to make it sparkle in candlelight, or to just kind of show off the sophistication and wealth that they might have, that they're able to include this type of detailing in their gowns. But so we don't know exactly what it is because it's not colored, it's not articulated to the level of detail, but it does look like there might be some sort of bow or ribbon or fringe detailing to the front of her bodice. And the dress looks, it's puffier up top, and then it gets tight around the waist. So this was now, the fashion had been changing to really accentuate the tiny waist, but then have a narrower dress line. So the women before had a big old poofy dress.
Yeah.
Now it's more of a bell shape. It's, or a mermaid shape, trumpet shape, where it's closer to the body and then starts to flare out towards the bottom. So you can see, it might look a little tighter around her bodice and torso. And then look at all that extra fabric in the back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so this was the era, the 1890s, I keep saying 1990s, 1890s, where the Gibson girl was coming into fashion. And so you can see, these are more the right's a little more formal, the woman in the photograph, but this puffy sleeve was very in vogue. The hairstyle that you see here is different than what we saw. These are parted on the side, it's middle part, but a very elaborate hairdo on the side. Now it was in style to have the bun pulled to the back of your head and have softer, gentler curls in the front.
Mhm.
So you can kind of here, you see that middle part, but then you can see the beautiful bun in the back of her head. And of course the hat fashion changed to match the bun. You can see that flat hat on the top. top resting, and you can start to see part of her bun in the back.
Hmm.
And then men, we didn't forget about you. Your fashion, you know, was sophisticated. There was the going out fashion, there was the work fashion, there, you know, so depending on what the event was, there were different looks for different events. So up top is a little more casual, and to the top right, it's a little more formal. You can see the top.
Okay, I can see a date on the bottom of this card. Is it 1899 or 89?
1899.
Okay.
Oh, good eyes.
I know.
Mhm.
Seriously. Good on you.
I'd have never looked.
Yeah, so these are from the same, this is from the same decade of fashion. So
Okay.
you can see she's really capturing this upper class, fancy pants, Gibson girl, the girl who was athletic and playing tennis during the day and had a life of leisure, but then was expected to have the polished, refined look when being out in a social setting. And so we had I've played some of them in the past for you, different local experts come in and using their lens of their profession talk about what they see on in an artwork. And so we had Brooke Wright, who is, she went to TCU, and she is a fashion designer here in Fort Worth that sells her clothing throughout the country. And so she looked at it with a fashion mindset and talked a little bit about what our American Girl is wearing.
The original American Girl.
Yeah, before they started making money off of her.
Yeah.
Fashion in the 1890s significantly changed from the 1880s. As you can see in the sculpture, skirts became far more narrow, allowing an illusion of a slimmer waistline. The focus of the silhouette also moved up towards the corset, the focus being in the blouse. Notice how the sleeves look like butterfly wings. This was a more common look for evening, and as the decade progressed, the sleeves grew as well. I really love, as a designer, the attention to the neckline, as this was often concealed as being too risque. What do you think she is thinking about? Her presence in the sculpture presents a woman of a higher economic class, one who had far more time for leisure. This particular sculpture really defines the upper class in the light of time. The artist was once quoted, "Look for beauty in the everyday world to catch the joy and swing of modern American life." I am inspired by this quote, as my own mission is to bring joy through color and clothing.
Sweet.
That's nice.
Mhm.
So yeah, she's a favorite. We have her out in the galleries now, so this will be one of the artworks, if you ever swing our way, that you can get to see in person. All right, we got one more look we're going to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
My favorite look.
It's a good look. You know, it's always in fashion. So what do we see?
A cowboy?
Cowboy.
Yes.
How do you know it's a cowboy? What is he wearing that tells you he's a cowboy?
Fancy chaps.
Yeah, the chaps, the
chaps.
gun, and the hat.
The gun.
Scarf.
Gun, the
scarf.
neckerchief, yes.
Basically the hat.
Yeah.
Leather gloves.
Leather. And I don't know where that other glove is, but yes, he's got one fancy glove on.
And it's probably a lasso he has there.
No, it's actually, I think, a whip.
Yeah,
Oh,
looks
it's a whip.
like a riding whip.
Ah,
Maybe he's a golfer and he only has one.
It looks
That
like
is strange.
it looks like he's holding the other glove in his hand.
Like right here.
No.
oh, on the other
side.
hand.
Oh yeah, maybe.
See hanging down behind the whip,
Yes, maybe. Yeah.
like he pulled it off and put his hand on his hip for the picture.
Yeah, definitely posing, hamming it up for this picture, huh?
Oh, if you look down about 6 inches, you can see the tail of the glove.
Right here.
Yes.
Yes.
Man, you guys got some bionic eyes on you. I'll tell you what.
I got out my magnifying glass.
Oh, you pulled out the big guns. Look at you, Martha.
I did.
All right. Well, yes, you guys pointed out all of the hallmarks of what makes a cowboy, and now we can walk through some of the history of the outfits. So this is an albumin silver print. These are your typical black and white prints, and this style of photography, or this mode of photography lasted a real long time. A lot of what you see in black and white prints from the late 1800s into the early 1900s are this type of photograph. So I heard, one of the first things someone pointed out was his chaps. So these are called woolly chaps. And you can kind of see in this sculpture here of the Frederick Remington sculpture, you can see he was able to capture these woolly chaps on the rider. And when you look at the sculpture in person, it looks like it just would be so bumpy for you to run your hands over. He did such a wonderful job of capturing that texture. But these are woolly chaps, and this was brought to the, this is a Wyoming cowboy. This was brought to the northern cowboys from the vaqueros in California. So the Spanish cowboy or the Mexican cowboys would wear these. They were still leather. It was hide and hair, so they were still leather protecting them from the elements. Cactus, prickly cactus, underbrush, or when they're riding through woods or things like that, it would keep their clothes cleaner longer, just because the jeans or pants under it were fine, were protected, and it also gave them a little flair. So these woolly chaps are typically only worn in the winter. I'm sure you wouldn't want to wear them in the summer; it'd be a little high. And there's another style, or within the chaps there are two styles, and you can kind of see here. These are called batwing chaps, and they kind of flare right out. And sometimes in rodeos today, you'll see riders wear these batwing. They kick out, and today they'll have fringe or embellishment on it to show off their riding capabilities. But then there are also, and I couldn't find a artwork that really captured it well enough, this straight leg chap, and that was really functional as well. That would wrap more tightly, kind of like a gaiter, more tightly around their legs. And so under the chaps, you can kind of see from this point of view. So that, they weren't, and all of y'all know about chaps, but they, as a New Englander, I did not know so much about chaps until I moved out west. But they latch behind the legs, so the entire leg is not completely covered. It's really the top parts of their legs. So when they're on a horse, they're protected. Under them, they're wearing pants. Do you guys know what kind of pants they're wearing? And it changes over time. When this photograph was taken, it was one thing, but prior, it was a different thing.
Well, was it, what you call the jeans are made out of?
Levi.
Denim.
Wrangler.
Denim, yes.
Denim, yes.
Denim, yes. So denim, and I think it was around early 1970s, denim made it on the scene. So cowboys started transitioning over to denim, and Levi was the first guy who got on that, who created the jean, and then Wrangler and Lee were short to follow. But before jeans, it was either canvas pants in the summer, so they were short and breathable, and then wool pants or trousers in the winter to keep them a little warmer. And cowboys still wore them after, once the jean hit the scene, but those were typically the three: jean, wool, or canvas, depending on the time of year.
What was the other one? I got denim, wool, and what was the one?
Canvas.
Canvas, yes, canvas.
Yeah, so they were breathable, light pants that they could wear on, and they were durable because they were, riding on horse or sitting on the horse most of the day, so they needed something that could hold up, and they weren't doing laundry the way we are now. So, okay, so someone else said the scarf. That's another hallmark of the cowboy, and so initially it was silk because that was what they could get their hands on. But over time, after the Mexican War, it moved to the bandana.
Yeah.
And so then it was lighter cotton, it was cheaper, easier to wash. And the reason the bandana, sometimes you wear it, if it was dusty, you'd wear it over your face. It wasn't coronavirus induced, it was style
Bad
of the
man.
time. yeah, back then I know got probably smallpox, or not smallpox, the
Yeah,
Spanish flu at
yeah.
some point made them wear it. But it was to add a little pop of color to something that was probably pretty drab, a lot of browns, a lot of, you know, earth tones. So wearing that bandana or little silk scarf gave that, it was their chance to, kind of like the collars that the women were wearing at the beginning, it gave them a chance to snazz up an outfit that might look kind of drab otherwise.
Precursor to the tie.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so the tie then, the bolero tie, that was it was a Vaccaro idea that they took their hat bands and then they would put it around their neck. So that was a way of dressing up, and very rarely would they wear bow ties, or if they did, it was for a very special occasion. No one ever wore bow ties or ties when they're actually, you know, in the field working with the cattle or horse. But yeah, that they had their version of ties, and today you can still, you know, from the rodeo, everyone's got their best piece of turquoise or silver on their bolero. Paulette, what were you going to say?
Well, I just I find the term cowboy fascinating because cows are all female, right? Boys are young men, and cowboys are supposed to be rough and tumble guys. So does anybody find that kind of a...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of a model cowboy.
Just thought I'd ask.
Annie Oakley was an anomaly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I wish I had pulled those pictures. We actually have quite a few pictures that it's similar to this. This is Charlie Russell. I'm sure y'all know who our good man Charlie Russell is. He did a series of cowgirls and they're in their garb, and we didn't have good pictures of them really, so I thought about pulling them, but they were kind of grainy. But yeah, women were doing the same thing in skirts, no less, you know, on horses. And so but they had very much the same look, the hat, the vest, the scarf, a button-down shirt of some sort. And then their skirts, if they, you know, some might wear chaps, but their skirts had fringe or some sort of embellishment on it just to give it a little bit of a feminine touch. But yeah, Annie Oakley too, she was a sharpshooter. So she and Buffalo Bill, we have quite a number of pictures of Buffalo Bill.
Yes.
Interestingly enough. And so, but they're later in the 1900s, so it was less about function and more about fashion at that point.
Yeah.
They were trying to win over audiences. They weren't actually working out.
Yeah. But Buffalo Bill was actually a circus, quite frankly.
Yeah. The Wild West shows were.
Wild West show, yeah.
But yeah, so then you can also see vests were also a common thing. You can kind of see here his hat is bent up, and here on this gentleman, you can kind of see his hat is bent up. And we have a session later in the season on hats, or I guess it'll be next year on hats, but where their hat would kind of flare up like that, so they had the room to move their lasso.
Yes.
So hats too also were real indicative of what part of the country they were from, because different areas had different style hats. And so
Bless you.
each hat looks different than the cowboy before it. Some of them are military inspired, some of them are just Mexican inspired. It depended on where in the world you were. But you see a lot of these fashions today worn by cowboys, depending on the type of rider they even are.
Some cowboys wore bowler hats too. That's another thing. It's not really commonly known.
Yeah. Spurs were also very common.
Yep.
Remington often includes some really cool details of spurs. He was such a good metal worker that he could get down to that type of detail and not have the detail break off, which says a lot of his ability to sculpt. And here you can see some spurs on this cowboy.
I have a set of spurs that Martin left.
Oh, cool.
He was a cowboy in the 50s when he was in high school.
The
The 1950s. Yeah.
Well, and he probably still, fashions haven't changed too much. I mean, you know,
No.
you probably wouldn't see one now or when back then. So
They had to be functional, so they couldn't be too different.
yeah. Well, any other observations on these young bucks before we call it a day?
Mm-mm.
No. I'll show you some pictures of me. Up until I was diagnosed with dementia, I was part of a group called the Single Action Shooter Society. Where we go out and have target practice, basically dressed as cowboys from the late 1800s,
Oh, cool.
1880s to 1890s. And I had a vest, and I had a hat, bandana, the whole 9 yards. I did not have, however, the things on your legs, the
chap.
chaps. I did not have chaps, no.
Well, you know what's
Some people
happening
out
for
there
your
did have
birthday?
chaps on.
Get you a pair of those woolly chaps.
I could use them today, going to the grocery store.
How funny. Yeah, and then now you've got some Halloween inspiration too.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, gang. Well, I'm gonna pull the share screen. Next week I'm back, and we're going to be talking about an exhibition that's actually on view right now, and it's just of one artist. So we'll be really focusing in on the artwork she has on view right now.
Oh, I enjoyed the program. It was great. Thank you.
Of course. Bye, y'all. Be good.
Bye. Have a good
Thank you for
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
I
Peggy,
was,
appreciate you.
oh, she's gone now.
All right. So let me share with you what's on for tomorrow.
That looked like a good session.
Was-
Her name is Spear.
Yeah, she's always good, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
She is.
Here we go. What do you see now?
Black.
The right screen.
Purple screen.
Oh.
Hobby show and tell.
Hobby
Thursday.
show and tell, yes.
Tomorrow. So that means you all are to come prepared.
Oh, wow, we can bring
Something
some
that
stuff out.
you do as a hobby.
What a great idea.
Yeah, we are singing again tomorrow, so we won't be there, unfortunately.
We will miss you.
Yes, we will miss this one here too, yeah.
And you'll be able to go find it on YouTube if you want to see what we do.
Okay,
The recording.
okay.
Post on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay.
See y'all tomorrow.
Okay. See you in the other
All right, bye.
Bye.
Until
Bye.
Friday. Bye.